Scope management is concerned with the processes required to ensure that the project includes all the work required and only the work required in order to complete the project successfully. So when you are managing the scope of a project, what you are doing there is that you want to clarify, understand what exactly is the work required to be done to produce the deliverables, to produce the results, to produce the products of the project. There's so much involved in managing the scope of a project. You want to be able to define the scope of the project, and then you want to be able to control the scope of the project. So it also includes verifying the work that the project team is completing to confirm that it is in alignment with project requirements. You want to plan out all the work that you want to do to define your scope, because your scope has to be defined, and there's a number of processes that you need to carry out to define your scope. So you want to define your scope and then make sure that the team is planning to do the right work, and then get them to do the right work, and then monitor and control to ensure that they're on track towards producing the right work. Defining the scope requires you to, of course, speak to stakeholders, get them to tell you their need, you document their need, and then you refine and synthesize based on what you get from them to be able to understand what exactly is the work to be done on the project, and lots more. So let's jump right into scope management. So let's start with this simple illustration here. To the optimist, the glass is half full. To the pessimist, the glass is half empty. But to the project manager, the glass is twice as big as it needs to be. So this is just a funny way to have some form of understanding the concept of scope management. You should have a clear idea of what exactly you want to do to produce the deliverables of the project, to produce the result of the project, to produce the products of the project. Cut out unnecessary things. So part of what you are doing in scope management is you want to know what is required, and you also want to know what is not required, what is in the scope, what is outside the scope. Cut out unnecessary things. No gold plating. Okay, let's also clarify the difference between project scope and product scope. Project is the project. Product is the outcome of the project. So the product scope is talking about characteristics, features, functions of the product of the project. The product is what we are talking about now. So for example, if the product is to be able to create something, describe that something. The description, the features, the function of that outcome, output, is the product scope. So you would always benchmark what you are doing in relation to this product scope. You will always benchmark in relation with the requirements of the project. So the requirements of the project are what would be used to produce the scope of the project, or the scope of the product, sorry. So completion of the product scope is measured against the requirements. That is, it is the requirements that you have collected from stakeholders that would make it into the scope of the product. That will define what specific features will be in the product, that would define what specific functions will the result, the product, the output of the project. What functions will they have, what features will they have. So you are measuring that against the project requirements. But as for the project scope is all the work needed to create the product of the project. Okay, for example, let's say you have a wedding ceremony, you want to manage an event. the product of that project, the main product of the project is having a successful wedding ceremony done on that main day, on that main wedding day. But the project is far more encompassing than the product, because a lot of activities, a lot of work would have to be done to be able to produce the product of that project. So the product is just that end point. It's just that thing you are doing at the end. But there's so much of work involved in being able to get to that point. So the scope of the project involves all the work, from starting of the project to the finishing of the project. That's what is involved in the scope of the project. But the scope of the product is just the features, the functionalities of that final thing you want to create at the end of the project. So completion of a project is measured against the project management plan. So if you understand this concept, the product scope is part of the project scope, just like the project requirements is part of the project management plan.